Hello, how are you? We are continuing new concept. I call it food of the battles or revolution foods. After every revolution, the habit of eating is changes. So one of them is France. I'll take the revolution happened. Louis XIV, 14 Louis is executed with Marie Antoinette. People revolted because the food, mainly bread, was wrong. They used the wrong flour. So with this excuse, all they gone. They destroyed the nobility, the king gone, and they didn't know what to do. And finally, luckily, Napoleon came. Napoleon took over. He's a young general. He says, I'm in charge. So he sorted out all these discrepancies. Of course, most of the nobility is gone or fled or dropped. So he says the clergy took in charge instead of nobility. And they were looking for a new idea what to do. So after this kind of revolutions, what happened? New system comes. So new system was before nobility couldn't vote, and now they had this right. So when they elected the new system, of course they were not paying that much money. Before they were paying half of your salary to the king to make him to survive, to build their palaces. But now that money they kept for themselves, for their well-being. They send their children to school, and they are chosen succeed in their profession. Of course, they had the money, so they go out to eat something. Of course, now a restaurant started. Restaurant word comes from the restore, to make it comfort. If you eat something, soup, for example, because it was first soup parlor, they were everywhere. So restaurant business started. The people spending money in the restaurant. So they were making their own menu. Menu means small something. Once you start your soup, you give soup, potage, and then add something next to it and start like that. So 18th century, the first time the people, as I said, they were making restaurateur, they were making menu. Once they were serving the soup, next to soup, they're adding something else, a little their specialty. And from Paris, this restaurant business went other places, other countries, other states, it's spreading like that. And the new chefs was coming, because the old chefs, most of them, they were working for the nobility and the king, and now they were opening their own restaurant. They were living, the rich people, noble people, and they were opening their own restaurant and they were making their own specialty. One of them was Karem. Karem is an uneducated guy, but at the age of young kid, they sent him. It was to a restaurant to earn money, and he did. His family was poor, and they had at least during the, according to the book, he says it is a large family of 20 children. Is one of them, Karem. But he was a clever guy. He was working under the good chefs, good pastry chefs. So he learned the pastry first. Maybe you knew all the banquet I was mentioning. And to take the attention of the guest, they were making pièce montée, large cakes with sugar, spoon sugar, and it's a difficult one to take the attention and the food coming in front of them, and they were serving from there everybody. They were not coming on the plate. They started the plate service later on. So he was adamant that he was working day and night, and it wasn't the gas oven, it was the coal oven. It wasn't easy, but it was crowded. The kitchen was crowded. So around the 18th century, he became a very good pastry chef. Then he learned a little bit the hot food as well. But he was taking note, and since that century, the pastry techniques start coming up nicely. With what they got, what kind of ingredient they got. But you know, the France in that time, they had dominions everywhere, Antilles and Tahiti and so on. They were getting all the cane sugar and cacao, which is the base of the chocolate, and different exotic fruits. And they were making different specialties. But Karem suddenly became very famous, and from all over the world, the kings wanted him to come and to do something for them. Even he went to Russia, and he taught them something, some French cuisine, some his specialties. Also, he took some idea from them, from Ottoman Empire and Russia. At that time, so many chefs exchanged. Can you believe it? He was earning $3,000 a year from the king. So he went to Russia, as I said, but it was too cold there, and he wanted to return to Europe, and he went to Vienna, Austria. He was again serving to the king or nobles, everything. From Russia, he got some idea, some technique, come back, and he created his own specialty in Europe. For example, borщ soup, a Russian borщ, you know, still in the winter, all the vegetables with the stock, named borщ. And also kulubyak. Kulubyak is a specialty, and the pastry is a white fish, sturgeon, served with caviar and pilaf. and cover it with pastry, kulubiyak. It was that time. Can you imagine? 18th century. Still, I remember in Ankara, in one of the restaurants, they were serving that is a specialty, but we serving individually. We make it like a beef Wellington, kulubiyak. Of course, instead of decorating table with fresh flour, instead of to put the porcelain, he got this idea. He was making small vases with fresh flour. Before it was porcelain plates. They were decorating. Also, a la carte service, he changed it to a la Russe service. We call it guéridon service. They used to put the table next to the sitting table, the customer table. So they were presenting the food on the large plate and putting on the guéridon. And from the guéridon service, you were putting on the plate. So everybody was watching it. And sometimes the carving was done in front of the customer. This is a la Russe. But the duck comes and you carve it duck. And this idea started, and then even in the big hotels, they had their own guéridon service. They had a hot plate trolley cover, stainless steel. They had the roast beef there and turkey or duck, and they were coming next to the customer table and carve it in front of it. Yes, there was so many changes. Good boy. He was the only one who taught about this. There was no school. I mean, in France they had the baker school, but this is the pastry guy who taught himself cooking as well. And the other specialties was chestnut pudding. Chestnut pudding, and his name is very famous. Even at the school, they taught to the students. Nesseldrot. Nesseldrot is made specialty with the chestnut puree, and veal Orlov. Veal Prince Orlov, on the name of Prince Orlov. They made their specialty. And Charlotte Russe, maybe you heard that. Charlotte Russe, the plenty cream and crunchy chocolate. So in Germany, when you go, so you had Bavarian. He created his own cream, Bavarian cream. They love it, the Bavarian, the German. So he's not only in the pastry section. He made his revolution. He added new dessert, new sauce as well. So even today, we are using their sauces. They separated sauce from the basic stocks, adding cream, adding different ingredient. They change the name. Roux is one of them to thicken the sauce. Bechamel, Mr. Bechamel, but at the same time, he had this idea. Bechamel, make a roux and add the hot cream or milk. Espanol sauce as well is one of his creation. Espanol. You add stock with the tomato and Hollandaise. Mainly is egg yolk. Egg yolk, very important, very fragile to make it. You mix, you add the butter, not very hot, because if you add hot butter, you cook the egg yolk. So slowly you add it, and you have a thick, gluey sauce to use for the vegetables. For example, blanch asparagus with or fish fillet. On top of it, you add the protein to protein. Of course, some people maybe they don't like it. Espanol is hot for the meat mainly, but Hollandaise can be for cold vegetable, hot vegetable, and fish mainly. But always serve hot, and you have to be very careful. You mustn't spoil the sauce. Hollandaise, Bisset, and velouté mainly with the cream. You make your like a bechamel, and you add cream and heavy sauce. As I said, they are very vegetable, very fragile sauce, but it's rich and making. You add cream, you add the Hollandaise. They give them some taste as well. For example, artichoke. You blanch your artichoke and serve with hot broad beans, skin out, and use Hollandaise sauce. Delicious. Yes. And velouté, we said, yes. For example, bechamel sauce, they say it's Italian origin, because they called Italian chef bechamel, but because it was very widely used in France, they got this name, bechamel. Bechamel is what we call it cheap and not cheap, economic sauce and good taste. You can use for anything. I use with potatoes, boiled potatoes sliced, and put some bechamel on top, and put some parmesan or Gruyere cheese, a little paprika, put it in the oven, and you have a delicious gratin potatoes. You can make it. You can use seafood. Seafood also is very good. And scallops, for example, you can use it with this. And any stock you add with the bechamel, taste is different. For example, if you you add the bechamel cream and fish stock, makes very rich. Yes, Karam stressed the presentation as well. Everything must be presented deliciously. That's why in the Geridon service, we show the food to the customer first, then we serve it. In nowadays, with the fast food, people forget how the food is presented. The new generation, they don't see that. Everything prepared on the plate and served like that, or there is no ceremony. On the fast food, there is no ceremony. You take the packet and drink, boom. Of course, with the on the banquet as well, he was decorating table with the centerpieces. You're making with the sugar. He was making meringue. With the meringue, he decorated large, and imagining taking copying pyramids, for example. He made or statues or columns, and you're making from the meringue. And meringue is egg white and with boiled sugar. There's a temperature, but at that time they didn't have a temperature, and the pearl quantity, and you touch it, I mean, if it becomes like a pearl consistency, you add your egg white, and they get thickened and easily manipulated, and you can create any statue or any object. But every time you have the temperature mustn't drop, and it's hot. For this reason, you put your hands in the cold water, then you start building it. Then when it's cold again, put it in a sugar. Then you make your own. Imagine you're making plaster. You work on the plaster, but plaster is not too hot, not too cold. But the meringue, you make a meringue with the hot sugar, but you have to mix with the egg white. Oh, how many hundreds egg white you need? So once you mastered this technique, he built large pièce montée, we call it. I mean, nowadays pièce montée is like a wedding cake, you know, on the layer of cakes, and decorated with they don't have this kind of struggle. In one of my previous video, I explained to you how to make meringue, hot meringue, and you can make it at home. We make you bring sugar with little water without caramelizing the sugar. So you have to be very careful. I mean, there's a sugar temperature, of course, but you don't need it too much, because you can see it. When it gets a little bit brownish sugar, about say 100 gram sugar or 200 gram sugar, all depends on what you need. Then before it gets darker, you put in a cold water and stop turning brownish. So the sugar is ready. So there is have to understand consistency. You can put your sugar temperature. You take a little bit in your finger and put it in the water quickly before it mustn't run, and it gets a pearl quality, consistency. It's ready. The sugar is ready. Then other somebody's or in the mixer, you're beating the egg whites. How many you need all depends how much you need, and you pour sugar slowly in the egg whites. Then you got Italian meringue, all right? And with this Italian meringue, you can do whatever you like. You cover the cake, you put it in the middle, and it is much better than if you buy cream from outside, the pastry cream. But pastry cream is much easier. You blend it, you beat it up, and it thicken, and you put it on. Of course, if you don't make it, you don't imagine how it is. It's much better. So we call it a pièce montée. Pièce montée, one cake on top of other cake, larger one, middle one, and top another cake, and you decorate it with Italian meringue, or now with different, so many unlimited cream or pastry techniques available, and material is well available. Also, Mr. Carême invented that year, 18th century, chaud-froid sauce. And because we are talking about the big banquet, in the banquet, there's a buffet, everybody serve to go there. And to the eyes, all the food, they were laying on the table, it must be good to the eyes, attractive. So for example, whole bird of turkey, for example, it been cooked, steam cook, take the skin off, or it can be cock as well, chicken, and skin off, and they put chaud-froid sauce. Look, with the technique that time, so difficult to keep it right. And nowadays, how we make chaud-froid sauce? We make velouté, chicken velouté, for example, chicken stock with like a bechamel, roux, chicken stock, and we add some gelatin, 1/3 gelatin, so it is runny. So when you poach your chicken breast or turkey, if you put it, or just chicken supreme or turkey supreme. When you call supreme, it's just the breast of chicken. So you pour it on top of it, and what it does, it doesn't run and go away. It stay there and shiny. So can you imagine whole turkey? It's just like that, and it's set and shiny. And then you add some decoration. You have a cut carrot and a parsley leaf, tomato skin. You decorate different carrot, different shape, and looks beautiful. So comes in front of the customer, somebody carve it nicely, and or in mean sliced, and we can do it with the large piece of fish as well. For example, salmon is ideal. What they do, they took the poached big salmon, then take it out, cool it, get the skin off, and cover it with chaud-froid sauce. Chaud-froid, chaud, hot, froid, cold. It is lukewarm, but it's set. Then you get, when it's set, of course, it's cold. So you serve it on the plate like that. People took it, but it looks very nice to the good appearance to the eye. Yes, still in the big banquet, there we use same techniques. 18th century, 200 years. Since then, we didn't have any other invention. we will talk about next program, hopefully uniform, because at that time they had just apron, and everybody was wearing anything they wanted, but Karim and the chefs coming after him, they see how is important uniform, because they didn't have a gas, they didn't have electricity, they were just burning coal, and it was dangerous. I had it very thick jackets. It was hot, pouring hot. They were pouring perspiration. So somebody needed to do something, renew the uniform, and the next program will continue. And if you like it, we will come from, we are still 18th century, and we will go towards the 19th century next week. Okay, take care. Thank you, brother. Bye-bye.